Sure, whatever you'd like to sing for Balaramji today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दना व्रजजनरञ्जना यशोदनन्दना व्रजजनरञ्जना यमुनतीरावनचारि यमुनतीरावनचारि जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज विहारी जय गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यमुनतीरावनचारि हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण प्रभु जी
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much. Hare Krishna and good morning, dear devotees. Happy Sri Balaram Jayanti, the appearance day of Sri Balaram. Um, very well. So, I'd like to do a small presentation today for my own purification to try to speak a little bit about Sri Balaram Tattva and Sri Guru Tattva. And I've listened to some classes by my Guru Maharaj, by an excerpt by His Holiness Srila Radhanatha Swami and His Holiness Sri Srimad Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj. And so perhaps we could speak a little bit about how the cowherd boys see Balaram in Vrindavan, the principle of Guru Tattva, uh, and then also how we experience Sri Balaram in the material world. So, how the cowherd boys see Sri Balaram, um, how we interact with him in the material world, and the principle of Guru Tattva. Um, very well. I of course require and very much humbly request your prayers so that I may say something nice, and also that everything be true and as said by my Guru Janas. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripa tamaham bande Shri Guru dinataranam. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, the deliverer of the fallen souls. His mercy turns the dumb into eloquent speakers and enables the lame to cross mountains. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. My spiritual master, open my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna on this earth for having taken shelter at his lotus feet. All glories to you, O servant of Saraswati Devi, who are preaching the message of Gauranga Mahaprabhu to the Western countries and delivering them from impersonalism and voidism. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapatantikam. When will Sri Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established on this earth the desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, grant me the shelter of his lotus feet? Pancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are exactly like desire trees, capable of satisfying the desires of all living entities. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Good morning again. I hope everyone has had a nice japa and had a nice morning meditation. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to purify myself by speaking about Sri Balaram. The verse that I've picked out to bring us into these topics is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 23, verse 1. So this is when Krishna and Balaram are going to see the wives of the Brahmanas because to get some food. And so you may recognize that this is not exactly in a Krishna book, this one line, but it's here in Srimad Bhagavatam. Also, it's worth mentioning that in Vrindavana, there is a difference to how we practice. They do it in a slightly different way. They do not consider Shravana Purnima, this auspicious full moon. They consider Bhadra Purnima, so 2 days before the appearance of Srimati Radharani, Shashti, the 6th day after the new moon. But Jiva Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami Prabhupada, is a great philosopher in our line. In his, he explains in the Gopal Champu, he speaks about the characteristics of Sri Vrindavan and the moods and the activities of the devotees there. It's a very, it's recommended that one read this book. So he says that it's not possible for Sri Balaram to have appeared 2 days before the appearance of Srimati Radharani because of the descriptions of the festivities of the samskaras that both he and Krishna participated in together. So he says that Sri Balaram would not have waited for a whole year and then celebrate with Krishna. So Srila Jiva Goswami explains why the appearance is today. This is a nice example of how the acharyas, we are standing on the shoulders of giant acharyas who explain the details of Krishna consciousness to us and all the nuances and intricacies. So this story, this line here is going to be similar to how the cowherd boys once smelled fruit from Talavan. So we'll begin here. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, dear devotees, we are reading from the 10th canto, chapter 23, verse 1. Shri Gopa Uchu Rama Rama Mahabaho Krishna Dushta Nibarhana Eshavai Bhadate Kshunas Tachintam Kartumartaha. So the synonyms, the word for word translation, Shri Gopa Uchu, the cowherd boy said, Rama Rama, O Lord Rama, Mahabaho, O mighty armed one. Krishna, O Lord Krishna, Dushta, of the wicked, Nibarhana, O destroyer, Irsha, this, Vai, indeed, Badhate, is causing distress. Kshut, sure. Thank you, Prabhuji. I will share the screen for the time being. Let's see. That's okay, Prabhu. I appreciate you. Okay. O destroyer, Esha, Kshut, hunger, Na, to us. Tat Shantim is its counteraction. Kartum Artaha, you ought to do. So the translation is, the cowherd boys said, O Rama, mighty armed one, O Krishna, chastiser of the wicked, we are being harassed by hunger, and you should do something about it. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The cowherd boys jokingly implied that since Krishna is the subduer of all bad things, the Lord should subdue their hunger by arranging for them to eat. In this statement by the cowherd boys, we observe the intimate, loving friendship they enjoyed with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, dear devotees, you may remember that at the name-giving ceremony, Sri Baladev was given the name Rama. But in Sri Vrindavan Dham, he is known by the name Dauji. So Dao means older brother. And so the question is, who is he the older brother to? So he's the older brother to Krishna. And Ji is, of course, a form of endearment. So even in his name, Dauji, in Sri Vrindavan Dham, Krishna is still the important aspect in the name. In the same way that Srila Prabhupada explained in one of his purports to the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna appreciates more being referred to by himself in relation to his devotees. So Radha Madhava, in that name, Radha is prominent. And Madhava means the husband of the goddess of fortune. So in this name, Krishna is being referred to as the husband of the goddess of fortune, Radha. That's his name. And Nanda Nandana, he's the son of Sri Nanda Maharaj. And so similarly in Sri Baladev's name, Dauji, he is being referred to as the older brother, the respected, the cherished and dearmost older brother of Sri Krishna. But he is also called Rama. And so here, the cowherd boys are petitioning to him, Rama, Rama, Mahabaho, oh mighty armed, very strong Rama, because he's very powerful. Krishna Dushta Nirbarhana, you are the destroyer of the wicked, Krishna, and you, Rama, are so powerfully armed. So it's said, we've heard said that you destroy all wicked things, and this hunger is wicked, and so you should do something about it, the cowherd boys are saying. And I'm sorry, dear devotees, if actually I'm going to close that window, please excuse me. They're going to be cutting. Well, Krishna's very kind. So this is This is the source of all young boys being hungry. Comes from the gopas, the cowherd boys. So for any growing boy or any parent of a growing child knows that young boys are always very hungry, and this is the source. How Krishna is Sarva Karana Karanam, the source of all things, so too his associates are the source. And so the gopas are the source of boys being hungry all the time. And this is very similar to, actually wanted to use this as an opportunity to get into the pastimes of Sri Talavan. So there are 12 forests in Vrindavan, and Talavan is one of them. And there's a special, it's called Talavan because there's a tala fruit that grows there. And if you don't know, it's very similar to a coconut, but it's smaller. Um, and similar to a coconut tree that doesn't have branches, it just shoots up this one very tall trunk, and then with leaves that go all around. And there's a tala fruit, and it has a very sweet smell. The same way that if you pass a field of roses, you'll smell the perfume of the roses. Similarly, the tala fruit has a very aromatic smell to it. And so the cowherd boys at one time, they had been told by their parents not to go there because it was well known that it was guarded by Dhenukasura, a big donkey, an ass demon. And so the boys were requested by their parents not to go because it was notoriously a very dangerous place to go. But still, their hunger got the best of them. And also, even though they were requested not to go, they knew that there is really no such thing as danger when you're around Krishna and Balaram. You may remember it with in the Agasura Lila, when Agasura kept his mouth open to resemble a big mountain cave, so to give shade to all the cowherd boys after playing, inviting them to come into their mouth. Oh, just come in here and rest. The cowherd boys, even though they realized that this was the demon, looked and saw Krishna and fearlessly walked into the mouth of a snake. So even though the cowherd boys are aware of advice from their parents that there are such things as danger in the world, because they're with Krishna and Balaram, they really see it as more of a friendly suggestion to not do a certain thing. But they know Rama Mahabaho. Rama has powerful arms, and Krishna is Dushta Nibarhana. He's the destroyer and chastiser of wicked things. So when the tala fruits were approaching the lotus nostrils of the cowherd boys, they petitioned similarly to Sri Krishna and Balaram to just go over there and sneak and get some tala fruit for them. And dear devotees, if you cannot hear me, please let me know. And I will stand up and close the window. But they won't be around for too long. So Krishna, Balaram, and the Gopas went to Talavan. And Balaram goes and stands near one of the trees and starts shaking the branch, shaking the trunk, so that the rest of the fruit falls down on the floor. And Dhenukasura, hearing this ruckus and hearing that somebody is interfering or trying to take part in his fruit, just instantly became angry, and he approached the scene, running very angrily, charging. Now Krishna, when he saw, recognized him and recognized that here is one of the descendants of Bali. And you may be remembering in Nrsimha Lila, Shri Prahlad, though he did refuse liberation, he did ask among staunch devotion to Sri Nrsimhadev, he did ask that Krishna spare any of his descendants. And so Krishna, seeing Dhenukasura running toward them, said, I can't do anything about this. Kind of looked at Balaram to, right, this is your situation to handle. And Balaram, very happy, rolls up his sleeves, throws his chadar behind him and like gets ready. And Dhenukasura comes and charges at him. And Balaram stops him and grabs his hind legs and spins him around so that his life air leaves his body. It's a superhuman pastime. We should remember in the first canto when it's described that Sri Krishna and Balaram came to earth and performed superhuman pastimes. And so he spun Dhenukasura around so much that his life air abandoned his body. And then he threw him on the top of the tree so that the tree would lean over, and then the rest of the tala fruit came. And Dhenukasura's sangha of other asuras came running over. And when Krishna saw that, he said, well, you're not related to Bali Maharaj. And so he said, this is my territory now. And then so Krishna enjoyed in the defeating of those demons. So this pastime defines the relationship of Sri Baladev coming with Krishna. He is in the position of being older than Krishna in Vraja. And we mentioned that that's why he's called Dauji. And so this day, Sri Balarama Jayanti is celebrating the appearance of Sri Balaram, who is Krishna's older brother and Krishna's first expansion. He's the first instance of Krishna's expansion. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expands himself unlimitedly as the waves of the ocean continually lap on the shore of the beach. Similarly, the Supreme Person expands himself unlimitedly within the purview of his devotee's vision, and it is impossible to count. But the first instance, the first wave, is Sri Balaram. So he is Swamsha, the first instance. He's non-different. So there are some expansions, but there are mainly two. And the first one is Swamsha, which means non-different. Swa, as in Swarupa. It's the form of the self. The Swarupa is the form of the self. So Swamsha means itself, or non-different from itself. Amsha, you may be remembering, is a part, but Swa is himself. So it's himself apart. And then there's Vibhinamsha. So Swamsha means non-different, and Vibhinamsha means distinctly different. So Swamsha is primary and an identical expansion. So you may notice some differences that Sri Balaram's skin is white like milk, and he likes using blue. And Nandana's skin is blackish, and he enjoys wearing yellow. But the potencies are identical. So he, in the expansion of the material universe, and all of this, by the way, dear devotees, can be found in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, the glories of Sri Nityananda Balaram, where Sri Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami has explained so nicely the process by which Sri Krishna creates the material world, but really Sri Balaram. And I very much do want to apologize about that. It seems like they're trying to cut down a tala tree in front of my house. And it has, as you know, very thick stem. And so they're going to be working at it with a weed whacker for quite a long time. I'm just going to close the window. I'm so sorry, dear devotees. Okay, that's better. So we were saying that Sri Baladev is a Swamsha expansion of Sri Krishna, which means that he's non-different. So in regards to the expansion, so we just spoke about how the devotees or how the cowherd boys interact with Dauji. And so now I'd like to speak about how we interact with Sri Balaram in the material world. And so to describe this, we have to take account for the creation of the material universe, which, as we know, when a small cloud-like portion covers some part of the spiritual world, that Mahat Tattva, that material cloud, is where the material manifestation takes place. And so this is carried out by Sri Balaram. So first he appears as Sankarsana, and this is Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu comes from him, from Shankarshana. And Mahavishnu is also called Karana Dakashayi Vishnu because he is laying in the Karana ocean. Billions and billions of universes, unlimited universes, emanate from the pores of this Karana Dakashayi Vishnu. And into each one of those pores, that Karana Dakashayi Vishnu expands further into Garbho Dakashayi Vishnu by entering each of the particular countless billions of universes. And not finding any place to lay down, he fills half of that universe with his perspiration. So we may be wondering about the inconceivability of this, but we know we may be having personal experience that when you have a fever, you can wake up in the middle of the night with your bed soaking. It's just so cold because you've been sweating all over your bed. Now we're a small living entity who only has the water in their body available to spread out into the bed. But here we're talking about the Supreme Person who is the source of all water. Rasoham apsukamteya. He is in fact the taste of water. So the Ganges is just coming from one of the holes that Vamanadev made on the outer coverings of the Mahatattva. And this Ganges cannot be held or checked by anyone. In certain parts, you can stand in the Ganges and be swept away forever and never seen again. So this is just one stream that is coming from the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So all water has its source in his body. And so it's not very difficult to understand that half of the universe can be filled up by his sweat. So as you may be knowing, Garbho Dakashayi Vishnu is called Garbho Dakashayi. Garbho means womb. So from his navel is born the lotus flower upon which Sri Brahmaji is inspired to create, to assemble the material elements into the universe. And so further, Garbho Dakashayi Vishnu expands into Shiro Dakashayi Vishnu, who is the Paramatma that enters into the heart of all living beings and resides in the ocean of milk. So each of those universes will have an expansion that is no longer primary, like Balaram. Balaram is a primary expansion, but we'll get those next expansions from Shweta-dvipa, the Shira Dakashayi Vishnu, and the Garbho Dakashayi Vishnu, who are no longer primary expansions. And these are all coming from Balaram, from his expansion, Shankarshana. So it's described at the end of the glories of Nityananda Balaram. Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj offers his obeisances to first the three Vishnus who are a part of Nityananda Balaram. So today we're celebrating that personality who, as Krishna's partner, as Krishna's very dear friend, the Supreme Person, is coming to the world to give shelter to all living beings. He's considered the original spiritual master because he's the older brother. So the older brother always knows best, and he has the knowledge. He has spiritual knowledge because he's the older brother. So, and in the three manifestations of the Swarupa, the original form, Sri Balaram is Sandini Shakti. So Sri Balaram is the aspect that maintains and actually manifests the spiritual world. Sri Vrindavan Dham itself is an expansion of Sri Baladev. Whereas Sri Krishna is the Samvit Shakti, which is the potency of knowledge. So when Sri Brahma was inspired to create, it was from Krishna's Samvit Shakti. So from the singing of the flute that the Vedas and the Gayatri was revealed to Sri Brahma, this is carried out by the Samvit potency. And Hladini Shakti is the pleasure-giving potency, which is personified by Srimati Radharani. So Balaram is the position of the original spiritual master. And when someone comprehends that they need spiritual help, to seek after, to actually gain spiritual illumination, to be able to face all of the adversity and the challenges of this world, this person naturally takes shelter of Sri Balaram, and they pray to Sri Balaram to present himself in a practical and pragmatic way. And he does that. He shoulders that responsibility. So he represents the spiritual knowledge and presents the spiritual knowledge to an individual and presents themselves in a presential way, in a practical, pragmatic, visible way. So Paramatma, who is an expansion of that Shirodakashaya Vishnu, is an expansion of Sri Balaram. So Paramatma comes from Sri Balaram, and he is that Chaitya Guru within the heart. And the Prakash Vigraha, or the visible form, is what would like to speak to now about Krishna Tattva, or Guru Tattva, which was mentioned very nicely by His Holiness Srila Radhanatha Swami. So he says that for the Jiva souls, as well as for the liberated souls who are eternally engaged in the service of the Lord manifests through an energy, through a principle by which he engages all living beings in his loving service. And that is called Guru Tattva. So that's the principle by which he engages everyone into his loving service. And it has been explained by the great acharyas that the conditioned jivas in the world, the point where Krishna of the spiritual world embraces the jiva here, that point is called Guru Tattva. So that's what Guru is. He's the point at which Krishna and the conditioned jiva are come into contact, or the point at which Krishna embraces. So Guru is the place where we meet Krishna. And that Guru Tattva is categorized as neither being Vishnu Tattva nor Jiva Tattva. A Jiva Tattva, a Jiva soul who is an inspired devotee, surrendering his lives to the previous acharyas, that soul, by the arrangement of the previous acharyas, may be endowed with Guru Tattva. This is why Srila Prabhupada says that we should not look at the spiritual master as a mundane individual. And Sri Rupa Goswami, in his Nectar of Instruction, also says that in the same way that the Ganges is covered with foam, but a person does not consider that when regarding the spiritual nature of the Ganges. Similarly, we may notice on the body some faults or other in the body of the spiritual master, but they should never be regarded from a material point of view, because this is neither Vishnu Tattva or Jiva Tattva. This is Guru Tattva, very special. This is a very special individual who's decided to surrender themselves to the spiritual masters, to the previous acharyas, to Krishna, to Balaram, and they are being blessed. They're being blessed by Sri Balaram and by the previous acharyas with a special potency to be able to guide the jiva to loving service of Krishna. So this is a very special individual. This is, remember, the point at which Sri Krishna embraces the jiva. This is actually Krishna himself spreading his mercy, of course. So Krishna's original expansion is Lord Balaram, and he is Guru Tattva, because in the spiritual world, Sri Balaram is making all the arrangements for the souls to engage in loving service to Krishna. So therefore, all eternally liberated souls have a relationship with either Sri Baladev or Srimati Radharani, depending on their rasa. So in this material world, it is Lord Balaram himself in the form of Guru Tattva that is empowering the spiritual masters to engage us in loving service. And so this is the principle. So we have already covered how the devotees are relating to Sri Balaram in the spiritual world by calling him Dauji and Rama Rama. And we have spoken about how Sri Balaram is, as His Grace Sri Hari Parshad Prabhu mentioned, that the pastime of Sri Balaram knocking down the tala fruit is indicative of the highest fruit. The highest goal of love of God is being brought down by Sri Baladev. And Dhenukasura is representing that, not wanting that, not wanting people to have access to that. But Sri Baladev has no problem with this. And so that highest fruit of love of God is being brought down by the Guru. And then we spoke about how we're interacting with Sri Baladev in the material world, how this energy that surrounds us, the 8 material elements, and is actually making up the body that we live in right now, and how the changing of the seasons, and how there's rain that is facilitating the production of agriculture, and the agriculture that's facilitating the sustenance of our body, and also an opportunity to offer sacrifice to the yajna, to the demigods in yajna. I heard nicely explained that one of the principles of energy is that it's never lost, only transferred. Except we have a special position in human bodies that we can actually cut off that energy and divert it all towards ourselves if we're misers and kripanas. But the purpose of yajna is to give perpetuity to that energy. So that all of this wonderful things that is being produced by the earth, we are having an opportunity now to continue to offer that energy onward. So because it doesn't end with us, and that's the mistake. That's Maya, to believe that energy is created for the purpose of our enjoyment. But we have to learn yajna here. We have to learn how we have to give continuity to this energy so that it doesn't end. So all of this is really an expansion of the Kshirodakashaya Vishnu and the Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, which is an expansion of Mahavishnu, which comes from Shankarshan, which is all being done by Baladev. His potency is inconceivable. And to guide us while we're navigating this inconceivable potency of his energy, he comes into our heart as Sri Paramatma, Antaryami, the internal witness. And he's guiding us. So if we don't finish what we're doing in one life as Paramatma, he inspires us to continue our service in the next life. Srila Prabhupada said once that this idea of instinct is a made-up word. If you think about it, there's really no such thing as instinct. You see a big wave coming and the crab is running away from the big wave, and a scientist would say, oh, that's instinct. They know not to follow. But it doesn't make sense that a crab that has never had experience of a wave would have some biological impetus to lead them away from the wave. Srila Prabhupada says that that's antaryami. That's super soul, Paramatma, that's guiding the soul away, saying, oh no, you know what water is from a previous life, so we should run away from this thing. So Prabhupada says, suppose that you go into a house and you know that the bathroom is right next to the living room in the house. And you come into that same house 30 years later, and someone says, where is the bathroom? And you say, oh, it's right next to the living room, because you've been in that house before. So similarly, we've already been inside a material body, and all it's a question of is Paramatma reminding us. Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishto mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha. So it's from Paramatma that we're getting remembrance. So we've been in a body once, we have an experience, and then Paramatma, this expansion of Sri Baladev, is giving us an opportunity to remember and to carry out the functions. So, you say, oh, what if I didn't get to finish all my karma in my last life? I made so much money and I didn't get to enjoy it. And so Paramatma reminds you, yes, you sought money in your last life. This is very important to you now. And so we should consider that all of us are extremely fortunate for some reason or other being reminded by Paramatma now to take spiritual life very seriously. And this, so we spoke about how the cowherd boys deal with Sri Balaram, how we're interacting with Sri Balaram now in the material world, which brings us to our last point, is how we're interacting with the spiritual master specifically, which is a natural segue from speaking about this Paramatma and Guru Tattva. His Holiness Srila Gaura Govinda Swami Maharaj mentioned that the reason why Sri Baladeva appeared in the womb of Devaki first is to leave his expansion of Sheshanaga, of Ananta Shesha, within the womb of Srimati Devaki. Because Sri Krishna, or Sri Bala, serves Sri Krishna in 10 respects. Let me see if I can find the verse here. It says, Saka Bahi Vyajan Sayan Avahana Griha Chatra Vastrayata Bhushana Asana. This is from Chaitanya Bhagavata. Says that Lord Balaram serves Krishna in 10 different ways. As his friend, brother, fan, bed, carrier, residence, umbrella, garments, ornaments, and sitting place. And so Sayana, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, Sayana means resting place. So in this way, Sri Baladev, by taking birth, or by entering the womb of Devaki, left his expansion of Ananta Shesha there to leave a bed for Krishna. Because where Balaram shows up, Krishna will show up later. So that is the reason why Sri Baladev showed up there first. And this is very important because Paramatma is accompanying us right now. And Paramatma has presented himself not only internally to us as Chaitya Guru, but has surrounded us with so many gurus. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of this wonderful family, is certainly that mercy of Sri Balarama. And our Diksha Gurus and our Shiksha Gurus and all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis that are trying their level best to surrender sincerely to the Supreme Person are all spiritual masters that Krishna has surrounded us with. And so we should pray on this day that the full moon has risen. Whoever has woken up early today saw the full moon. Actually, today I saw, when I offered obeisances to Tulsi Devi, when I looked up and looked at Tulsi Maharani, I saw the full moon was right behind her. Almost as though the moon was caught in the webs of Tulsi Maharani, or in the branches of Tulsi Maharani. And so we should remember that today is a very special appearance of Sri Baladev. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Janma Karma Chame Divyam, that it's very important to understand his Janma and his Karma. Somewhere on this earth, 5,000 years ago, Sri Baladeva appeared on this very special moon. But on this very special moon is where Sri Baladev also decides to appear eternally. So in some other universe, that Leela is happening right now. That Devaki and Vasudeva are in the prison, and Sri Baladev is appearing now, right there. In the same way that the moon appears on the eastern horizon, Srila Baladev's expansions are happening all over the universes. So he takes one step into this universe and then takes another step. But that means that he's taking his first step in another universe. And he takes a second step in that universe, which is the third step in this one. He's taking his first step in another one. So eternally, that is the tattva of Sri Krishna and Sri Balaram's Janma, that they are appearing everywhere. They are appearing all the time somewhere. And so that's happening right now. And we would be very fortunate if Srila Baladev would appear in our hearts, so that he would make a sitting place for Sri Krishna to be in our hearts. But this is affected, first of all, by following the orders of the spiritual master. So Srila Prabhupada has given us a general instruction that we should all follow 4 regulative principles, and that we should try to chant, we should chant at least 16 rounds. So Bala is not called Bala for no reason. He's called Bala because he's extremely strong, spiritual strength, not physical strength. You may be knowing that there are so many people that can lift 200 pounds, 400 pounds, 500 pounds. They can pull trucks, but they can't lift their japa mala one time to chant a single name of Hari. So that strength to chant Hare Krishna is coming from Sri Balaram. It's because he has favored us at all that we can lift our japa mala, not one name, not 2 names, but at least 16 rounds worth of names. That's because Sri Baladev is helping us lift our hands and move our fingers in that way. And he's also giving us the potency to open these books and to try to understand what Srila Prabhupada is saying. And so this is the special mercy of Chaitya Guru, that before we can even, lift a sandesh to Krishna's mouth, first we have to be able to lift a japamala. First we have to be able to lift ourselves from bed, which is very difficult to do. It's very difficult to do. The other day in Vaishnava etiquette, we were reading, Srila Prabhupada said that one should wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And also in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, I think verse 617 or 618 to the purport, he says, anyone who sleeps longer than 6 to 7 hours is in tamaguna. And that's so hard to do in the material world. But it's also a mercy that we even have an instruction, because we would have no idea where north even is, which is Krishna Prema, if it wasn't for this care, this responsibility that Sri Baladev, Krishna's older brother, is taking upon himself to instruct the fallen conditioned souls, of which I am counted among them. And so a very practical way that we could beg for the mercy of Sri Balaram to appear in our heart is to beg for the order of the spiritual master to come into our heart. I'm certain that every one of us has received an instruction, either general or personal, from our Guru Janas, for some instruction, something that will please Krishna. This brings us to our final point. I would like to make a little bit of time to describe Sri Nityananda Balaram, who is Vrishabhanu Nanda Sutta. So Narottam Das Thakur has said that Balarama Hoilo Nitai, that Balaram has appeared as Nitai, and Vrishabhanu Nanda Sutta, the son of the king of Vrindavan, has appeared as Nimai. And one pastime that's very nice is the pastime with Jagai and Madai, where Sri Nityananda Balaram thinks to himself, one wonderful way to spread this mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to find the most fallen people. And if he can convince them to chant Hari Bol, then that will help Krishna Chaitanya's mission be very reputable. Because it's in a way not difficult to get someone like Srivas to chant. It's not difficult to get someone like Advaita Charya to chant, or Gadadhar Pandit. These people are born in Brahmin families. They're so special already. But what would be special is to get a drunk, a person that's just blabbering, like the example of the most fallen individual in the material world. And that's who Nityananda thought, that's who I'm going to get. Because his first purpose is to be Dasya of Krishna, to serve and to help. And so he thought, my Krishna Chaitanya wants to spread the chanting of the holy name. And he wants to show how the chanting of the holy name is Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtana, that the treasure of love is revealed by chanting Hare Krishna. And if I can get the most fallen people to chant Hare Krishna and feel love for God, I will prove that what my guru, what Sri Krishna Chaitanya has said is correct. And so I'll do that. And that is the mood of Srila Prabhupada, to somehow or other spread this message of the power and the beauty of the holy names around. And, you know, even if we can't distribute a book, um, even if we can't help someone else be Krishna conscious, which we very much should try to do, if we can help, if we can let that message of Srila Prabhupada come into our heart, like he said in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, if only one person becomes a pure devotee of Krishna consciousness, then this whole movement is a success. So if at least we can become pure devotees, then that would be pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, that would be pleasing to Sri Baladev, and then maybe our hearts will be a bed for Sri Nandanandana Krishna to take rest in. Dear devotees, I'm sorry if I spoke so long. I was very grateful to Jai Sachinandana Prabhu for giving me a chance to speak, to Narottam Vilas Prabhu for organizing the video, and to all of you for kindly lending your ears so that I may say something for my own purification. His Grace, Hari Parshad Prabhu, said something very nice, and I'd like to follow in his footsteps by saying, if there's any mistakes, please correct me. And if there's anything wonderful you heard, know that that belongs to my spiritual masters, my Guru Janas. Hare Krishna. If anyone would like to add something about some pastime or some reflection or some intention, please feel free to share. Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for sharing, about Lal Balaram very nicely, beautifully. I just want to share one thing, and I have a couple of questions. You were saying that, Lord Balaram is everything he arranges in the universe, right? Basically, is coming from Sankarshan and all that. Even Vrindavan land is also his expansion, right, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
I just want to add that, the holy Vrindavan land is also expansion of Lord Balaram, right?
Yeah.
And Prabhuji, Talavan, you are talking about Dhenukasura, and Dhenukasura is he a descendant of Bali Maharaj?
Yes, that is what my I listened to a class yesterday from my Guru Maharaj, and he described that when Krishna saw Dhenukasura, he realized that he was a descendant of Bali, which makes him a descendant of Sri Prahlad, and so he vowed not to ever hurt anyone from Sri Prahlad's family.
Prabhuji, the tala fruits, actually, when you are describing it, actually, it was mouth-watering, actually. So, do we get it in right now also, the tala fruits, or it's only that time there?
I don't know, Mataji. I don't know. I think when I went to when I was fortunate enough to visit Sri Vrindavan Dham, I didn't go to Talavan, and so I don't know if we still have those fruits.
Okay. So, Prabhuji, actually, Balaram is an immediate expansion of Lord Sri Krishna, right? So, and Radharani is a pleasure potency.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do we actually differentiate between Balaram and Radharani?
Yeah, Mataji, that's Sri Balar. I've heard that Sri Balaram is Krishna's second body. So they say that it's Krishna's second body, and he takes this form of Balaram to serve Krishna. You may be knowing that Krishna comes from the two words Krish, from Akarshana or Akarshati, which means attractive or all attractive, and Na from Ananda, pleasure. So remember when Sri Krishna looked at his reflection in on the floor in Dwarka Dham, he thought, who is this lovely boy that I want to hug now? So he was feeling a little bit of Srimati Radharani's mood of whenever she sees Krishna wanting to embrace him. So if Krishna is attracted by himself, what to speak of, his expansion? So Balaram's first thought is to serve Krishna in this way. And Sri Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we will read now, says that Radha and Krishna were actually one body. They're actually one soul that's split into two bodies. And now, again, for these pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are again coming into one body. So that is the way that I have heard described, that Sri Baladev is Krishna's second body, and Srimati Radharani and Krishna are actually one soul, but they have split into two bodies. So that is the way that I have heard it explained by the great acharyas. If there's if there is a devotee here that would has something to add, please feel free.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to make a note that my good wife Ali has made these small deities, these small pocket deities, just Jagannath and Baladev there. And so those cushions can also be turned into beds for them. And I'm very much looking forward to when she makes Subhadraji so that we can have them, the whole family together. But yeah, I wanted to share.
Beautiful, beautiful, Prabhuji. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu, for giving a wonderful class. You covered a lot of topics, and obviously you've heard a lot about Balaramji, and tried to explain Balaram Tattva and Nityananda Tattva are difficult topics, for the mildly, especially Nityananda ji. That's why one time Giriraj Maharaj was recollecting a pastime of Srila Prabhupada in a beautiful lecture about Nityananda ji. And apparently, at one time in India, there was a devotee who was kind of going astray, disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And so Srila Prabhupada told Ramakrishna Maharaj that he was doing something like illegal, this devotee. And so Srila Prabhupada told Ramakrishna Maharaj, I disown him. And Ramakrishna Maharaj said, really, Srila Prabhupada? And Srila Prabhupada said, he said, no, I can never disown any disciple, any devotee. You know? And then Giriraj Maharaj's realization was that, you know, if you want to please Shri Radha Krishna, you have to go through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. And if that's the case, then to go through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu means to go through Nityananda ji. And to appeal to Sri Nityananda ji, you have to go to Jagai Madai. That's why devotees engage in book distribution and Harina. So that was, I thought, a very nice realization. And then you can see how, you know, Srila Prabhupada manifested that so nicely, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's disciples were like pretty senior people. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Prakashanand, Saraswati, Sri Rup Sanatana Goswami. Whereas Nityananda and Haridas, you know, they went out into the real world. Well, that's the purpose. Guru Tattva is not so easy to contemplate, you know, or to really understand. So it takes a lot of devotion to understand. So that's one thing. And the other thing I think is to also appreciate that Guru is one, which is Krishna. And Guru, Srila Prabhupada says this in his offering to Bhakshila Bhakti Santa Maharaj. The Absolute is one, and so is the Guru. It's not, now Guru can manifest as many jiva agents, i.e. the spiritual masters, but ultimately the deliverance is done by Lord Krishna himself. So we know from the pastime of, a lot of times devotees talk about Duryodhan being the disciple of Balaramji, but and how Duryodhan was not a good character, right? By even worldly means, he was not a good character. And so a nice understanding from Gaur Govinda Maharaj is that he said, first, just to call yourself a disciple doesn't mean you're a real disciple. can see that in the example of Duryodhana. You know, I'm the disciple of Balaramji, but is he acting like the disciple of Balaramji? No. Well, there's the external and then there's the internal. Okay. So that's one. And the second thing is, Maharaj also explained that part of the problem with Duryodhana was, okay, accepting Balaramji, but then neglecting all the other gurus that were there at that time. And that's, you know, a grievous problem. We have to be very careful about, you know, it's Guru, G-U-R-U-N-S, not Guru, right? So we have to appreciate that. So a lot of wonderful things, and like you said, the chapter in Chaitanya Charitamrita, what Nityananda Tattva is pretty deep, but it's a good place of understanding. Thank you for bringing out so many pastimes, technical, philosophical, complex, as well as you know, sweeter pastimes. Yeah, I was reading that, you know, it says Janma Karma Chame Devyam Evam Yo Veti Tattva. Veti Tattva means not just you know the truth, but knowing the truth. So it's one thing to say, I know about these pastimes, another thing to know the significance of these pastimes in a devotional way. You brought that out very nice. Thank you. Sorry we couldn't do, you know, in the evening. I hope